الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال الشيطان لما قضي الأمر إن الله وعدكم وعد الحق ووعدتكم فأخلفتكم وما كان لي عليكم من سلطان إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي فلا تلوموني ولوموا أنفسكم ما أنا بمصرخكم وما أنتم بمصرخي إني كفرت بما أشركتموني من قبل إن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم صدق الله العظيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وأزواجه وذرياته أجمعين. Respected elders, young friends, our sisters in Islam, I've been told to speak for about 15 minutes. So inshallah, in 15 minutes, I will try my best and I will finish inshallah. You know, the theme that we had yesterday was becoming attached to the Quran. Imam Darimi rahimahullah has quoted from Sayyidina Hassan al-Bisri rahimahullah the statement of Sayyidina Uthman dhun Nurayn. And he says, Sayyidina Uthman used to say, لو طهرت قلوبنا ما شبعت من كلام ربنا. If our hearts were clean, if they were purified, we would never ever tire from reading the Quran. If only our hearts were cleansed. This is why the ulama say there are 5 things that will soften your heart. Number 1, tilawat of the Quran. Number 2, staying in good company. Number 3, remembrance of death. Number 4, dhikrullah and the remembrance of Allah. And number 5, ziyaratul qubur, going to the qabristan and visiting the graves. These are 5 things that will soften the heart of an individual. And one of them is tilawatul Quran. When you see, there's a hadith, tamutun kama tahyaun. You will die the way you will live. Sayyidina Uthman dhun Nurayn, when he was attacked by the rebels and the wall of his apartment, his room was scaled, what did his wife say? He says, what permissibility do you find to kill an individual who spends his entire night, 1 rakat he finishes the entire Quran. 1 night he finishes the entire Quran. And that's why when he dies, the first drop of blood that fell was on the ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ اللَّهُ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. So inshallah, my message is just attached to the Quran, and inshallah you will never go astray. A person will never go astray. Lives have changed because of attachment to the Quran. If you do get a chance afterwards, have a look. Just Google the name Dr. Philip Grenier. Grenier. This was in the history of France. This is the first Muslim politician who accepted Islam in France, and he was the first politician in the history of France. His name is Dr. Philip Grenier. He was born in 1865 and he passed away in 1944. He says, I had mere do kaam the. Okay, I love to do things. Number 1, I loved exploring the life of the ocean. I loved exploring the ocean. So my majority of my life was spent between the sky and the ocean. So I used to travel a lot. That was number 1. And number 2, my second pastime was just reading. I used to read and read and read. It so happened someone gave me a French translation of the Quran. And my gaze fell, and I was amazed. And look what it says. My gaze fell on Surah An-Nur, ayat number 40 of Surah An-Nur. أو كظلمات في بحر لجي إلى آخر الآية. Surah An-Nur, para number 18, ayat number 14. And then he writes, 1 sea mile changed my life forever. One example changed my life for forever. And then he writes in there, that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining in that ayat of the Quran, we don't say verse, we say ayat. non-Muslims will use verses of the Quran. We should not be using verse. We should say ayat, because every single ayat of the Quran is a miracle. And the word ayat means sign. So every ayat of the Quran is a miracle. So he says, in that ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains the example of a misguided individual. Someone who is misguided. What is his example? He says, it's like someone in the ocean, in the midst of a dark ocean, on a dark night, when there are clouds and it is completely overshadowed and you barely can see anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is the sea mile and the example of an individual, إِذَا أَخْرَجَ يَدَهُ لَمْ يَكَدْ يَرَاهَا. If he were to take out his hand to see, he can't even see his hands because there is complete darkness. And this is the example of an individual who is completely misguided. He says, this one ayat of the Quran changed my entire life. One non-Muslim lady was asked, how did you come into Islam? She says, I was reading the translation of Surah Alif Lam Mim Sajda that we generally read for protection against the punishment of the grave. And she says, I came to the ayat, I think it's ayat number 14 in Surah Alif Lam Mim Sajda, where Allah says, فَذُوقُوا بِمَا نَسِيتُمْ لِقَاءَ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا إِنَّا نَسِينَاكُمْ وَذُوقُوا عَذَابَ الْخُلْدِ. She says, when I read this ayat, Allah Ta'ala is saying, the way you forgot me in the world, I will forget you on the day of Qiyamah. She says, that one ayat changed my entire life and I became a Muslim. But see, we have the gift, but we have kept it wrapped up, we have not opened it. If only we opened it, we would have realized the gems of the Quran. Every single day in Surah Fatiha, Allah is telling me and you, remember Pul Sarat, don't forget Pul Sarat, don't forget Pul Sarat. Allah could have said, Ihdina at-tariq al-mustaqim. Allah could have said, Ihdina as-sabil al-mustaqim. But what does Allah say? Ihdina as-sarat al-mustaqim. Why? The word sarat reminds the individual of Pul Sarat and dying and then going upon Pul Sarat every single day. Khair, inshallah, I wanted to just share with you one ayat of the Quran. I will translate the ayat and inshallah I will finish. And it's amazing why this ayat, it's in Surah Ibrahim. This ayat is in Surah Ibrahim. I think it's ayat number 22. Ayat number 22 in Surah Ibrahim. If you do have a look, inshallah, like I've told you, there are gems in the Quran. We just need to unravel them. The Quran is an ocean. The deeper you go, the more gems you will find. Allama Anwar Shah Kashmiri rahimahullah used to say, 200,000 tafsir of the Quran have been written. And no one can say the right of the Quran has been fulfilled. Because the Quran is a quality of Allah. It's a sifat of Allah. The way the zat of Allah is ghair mahdud, unlimited. Likewise, the sifat of Allah are also ghair mahdud. So Quran is the knowledge of Allah, is the speech of Allah, the kalam of Allah. So it is ghair mahdud. We know we all have four enemies. We all have four enemies. And they are in the word dushman. Dushman ka an enemy. So mashallah, you look at the word dushman, how many enemies do we have? Four. Dunya, Shaytan, Makhluq, and Nafs. These are the four enemies of man. Dunya, Shaytan, Makhluq, and Nafs. Imam al-Sha'bi, rahimahullah, who's a student of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. He was born during the Khilafat of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab. He was born around 20 AH. That's approximately 641 CE he was born. Imam al-Sha'bi, rahimahullah, his name is Amir ibn Sharahil al-Sha'bi, a great faqih as well. He was born in Iraq. He's a student of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas and he's a Ustad of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. Imam al-Sha'bi, he says, the greatest two enemies of humans, or the two greatest creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one is Iblis, who refused to prostrate before Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. And number two, Fir'aun, because he was the one who claimed, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. So we know our enemies. And the two main ones are Ad-Dunya and Shaytan. Inna wa'da Allahi haqq, فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ. So I just want to share with you one ayat of the Quran. And it's an amazing ayat. Like I've told you, inshallah, if you do get a chance afterwards, have a look. This is Allama Qurtubi rahimahullah, number one. And number two, Allama Ibn al-Qayyim. These two individuals have quoted this ayat number 22 of Surah Ibrahim, as khutbatul shaitan on the day of Qiyamah. Yani Shaytan will give a lecture on the day of Qiyamah. And that lecture of Shaytan has been recorded by Allah in the Quran. Allama Qurtubi in Ahkam al-Quran, he even writes, Shaytan yakhtub. He will give a lecture on the day of Qiyamah. Look what Allah says. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ. It starts from ayat number 21 in Surah Ibrahim. وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا فَقَالَ الضُّعَفَاءُ لِلَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا إِنَّا كُنَّا لَكُمْ تَبَعًا. People will be presented before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Qiyamah. The weak will say to the elite, we followed you and now we've ended up in Jahannam. You need to come and you need to safeguard us. You need to take us out of the mess that you put us in. They will say, لَوْ هَدَانَ اللَّهُ لَهَدَيْنَاكُمْ. If we were guided, we would have guided you, but we were misguided in the first place. So why did you follow us? So now everyone will say, okay, the main blame goes to Shaitan. So let's go to Iblis. So now they will come to Iblis. Now the reason why Allah has told me and you this khutbah in the Quran, why? So become amongst those individuals. Don't become amongst those individuals that has to listen to the khutbah of Shaitan live on the day of Qiyamah in Jahannam. Don't become amongst them. If you do, then you will have to listen to the khutbah of Shaitan live, mubashiran. It will be mubashiran and you will have to listen live. So when everyone ends up in Jahannam, look what Allah says. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. And what is interesting, Allah doesn't say, وَيَقُولُ الشَّيْطَانِ. It's going to happen in the future. But Allah uses what? Sighatul Madi. He says, it's a done deal. It's yaqeen. It's going to happen. It's as if it's already done. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ. Shaitan will say on the day of Qiyamah, when? لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. When the matter is decreed. People who are going into Jannah will go into Jannah. People who are going into Jahannam will go into Jahannam. When the matter is decreed, what will happen? وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. Why are you blaming me today? You had two options. Allah Ta'ala gave you an option and I gave you an option. But I am telling you, I put my hands up and I was a liar. The promise of Allah was absolutely correct. I gave you a promise as well, فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, and I lied to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the many verses of the Quran, يَعِدُهُمْ وَيُمَنِّيهِمْ وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ إِلَّا غُرُورًا وَلَأُضِلَّنَّهُمْ وَلَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ الشَّيْطَانِ يَعِدُكُمُ الْفَقْرَ. Shaitan promises you that you will become poverty stricken and you become poor if you give charity in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Shaitan says, I gave you a promise, Allah gave you a promise. فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, and I lied to you. Look what he says after that. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Today, why are you blaming me for? Do not blame me because I had absolutely no control. I had no control. Inshallah, those brothers who understand the Arabic language, it's a phenomenal read. Okay, you might ask a question, why did Allah Ta'ala create Iblis in the first place? Why did Allah create him when Allah knew he will take people astray? Why did Allah create him? In Ighathatul Lahfan, Allama Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, also in Shifa'ul Alil, he's mentioned many reasons. Okay, this is the hikmah of Allah and Allah Ta'ala knows best. Well, what was the wisdom in the creation of Iblis? Allah Ta'ala knows best. We don't question the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One wisdom that Allama Ibn al-Qayyim has mentioned of the creation of Iblis is what? We have someone to blame when you do something wrong. When you do something wrong, you can blame Shaitan and you can say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You can say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and you can move on. But khair, Shaitan, we can blame Shaitan when we are alive. But we can't blame Shaitan on the day of Qiyamah. Because in this world, we have raw recourse to tawbah. We can come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we can say, Astaghfirullah Rabbi min kulli dhammin wa atubu ilayh. On the day of Qiyamah, Shaitan will say himself, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي. Don't blame me. وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. You blame yourself. مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ. You see, it's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the only way that Shaitan says himself that you can protect yourself from Shaitan is, he says, وَمَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُم مِّن سُلْطَانٍ. وَمَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُم مِّن سُلْطَانٍ. I did not have any power over you. I had the gift of the gab. I was able to lie. I was able to deceive you. You fell to my deception. That is not my fault. You are to blame. So he says, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْرِخِي. Today, I am not coming to your assistance. You will not come to my assistance. But who are the people who are going to be saved on the day of Qiyamah? Shaytan says himself, مَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِّن سُلْطَانٍ. Say, Allah subhanahu إِلَّا مَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Ya mukhlaseen. There are two qira'at. Those who are mukhlis, whatever you do, inshallah, you do with ikhlas. You do with sincerity of intention. And inshallah, that is how you are going to be able to safeguard yourself from the attack and the deception of shaitan. So inshallah, if you do get a chance, have a look at this khutbah of Shaytan and what Shaytan will say on the day of Qiyamah. So, فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْرِخِي. Look what he says after that. إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِي. Today, I reject your shirk. The ulama say, what was the shirk that we are doing with Iblis? A man obeying Iblis is shirk. We are making Iblis the sharik of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in obedience. Shaitan will say on the day of Qiyamah, Inni kafartu bima ashraktumuni. You partnered me with Allah in terms of obedience. You should have given obedience to Allah and you gave it to me. Today I am rejecting the fact that you were obedient to me. Inni kafartu bima ashraktumuni min qabl. Inna zalimin lahum adabun alim. Those people who follow the way of Shaitan are zalim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding to realize the attacks of Shaitan before we die. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it so that we do not have to listen to the khutbah of Shaitan live on the day of Qiyamah. Inshallah, we need to realize, we need to open our eyes, we need to understand the Quran, we need to delve into the Quran. As Allah says in the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. If we don't understand the Quran, then there is really something wrong with the human heart. That's what the Quran is saying. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Are there locks on your heart that you are not able to delve deep into the Quran? Today, 88% of people, 88%, take their mobile phones into the toilet. 88%. That is the research that you will find. We've got time for WhatsApp. You know, Maulana Tariq Jamil in one of his lectures says, people say, I am busy, busy, busy. So therefore we don't have time for Quran. Don't say you are busy, say you are lazy. To say I don't have time for the Quran, okay, this is an excuse, I am busy. You've got time for WhatsApp, you've got time for Facebook, for Instagram, you've got time for everything. All you have to do, the time that we are giving to WhatsApp, just take maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes out of your time, inshallah. You know what a lot of people do? I have seen with my own eyes, in Mina during the Zamana of Hajj, youngsters playing with cards, youngsters watching football in Mina in the tent, live football. Okay, they are streaming from back home and they are watching. You go and speak to them and you say, why? You know what they say? Time pass nahi hota. We need something to pass our time. You believe me, if you get into the Quran, you will feel your life is too short. Aapko ye andaza hoga ki mashallah the Quran is an ocean, but we just have to go into the Quran. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding. I'll just finish on this inshallah. You know, it's amazing. If you look at قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, these are the two last surahs of the Quran. Surah Falaq says, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. What connects the two surahs? The greatest hasid in humanity that has ever come into the world is who? مِن شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. You see how the two surahs connect. And in that manner, inshallah, you will see the entire Quran is an amazing ocean. Okay, you just have to go inside and you will have to try and take it out. Inshallah, I'll just finish, inshallah, I'll just wrap up on this. There is amazing ring structure in the Quran. Ring structure in the Quran. Look at Surah Yusuf. If you look at Surah Yusuf, What does Allah mention right at the beginning of Surah Yusuf? The dream of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. There are 12 parts to Surah Yusuf. 12 parts to Surah Yusuf. The part number 1 is a dream of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Part number 2 is the brothers plotting to kill their own brother, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Part number 3 is Zaliqa trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. Part number 4, the women of Egypt trying to seduce Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Now there are 12 parts. What was part number 1? The dream of Yusuf alayhi salam. What is part number 12? The interpretation of the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam. Interpretation. What was part number 2? The brothers plotting to kill their brother, Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Part number 11 is the brothers admitting to their mistake, that we were at fault. Part number 3, Zaliqa trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. Part number 10, you go back, part number 10 is Zaliqa admitting, I was wrong. Part number 4, the women trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. But you go part number 9, it's amazing. This is known as ring binding in the Quran. It's a ring structure in the Quran. You will find the entire Quran, some of the gems that you will come out with, it is absolutely mind-boggling. But the case is, you have to delve deeper and you have to read the Quran. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst the people of the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the people of the Quran are Ahlullah. Ahlul Quran, hum Ahlullahi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst them. Wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqihi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.